have the official time check. Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our June budget meeting. It is good to be here, and I hope that you are well at home. If I could begin with the statement of acknowledgement, we acknowledge the traditional owners of this land in which we are meeting and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and to those from other communities who are here with us today, for they hold the memories, the tradition and the culture of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Item 3 on our agenda is apologies and requests for leave of absence. Is there any? I don't imagine any of us are getting to plan any holidays to get away from the cold anytime soon. Item 4 is declarations under acts, regulations, codes and local laws. I don't think there is any. Do we need to receive the budget table papers tonight? No. Item 5 is declarations of councillors of any conflict of interest. I know there's one, but Councillor Meldrum, you go first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 8.1, 8.13, 8.14 and 17.3.
Okay, I'm going to make sure you stick your hand up loud for those, given that there's a few to remember. And Councillor Bennett. 8.13, thank you. Again, if you could give me a hoy when that comes along, that would be great. Item 6 is confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. The recommendation is there on the bottom of page 3 to adopt those. Can I have someone move that? Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Does anyone wish to speak against it? I will put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. The second recommendation is there on page 4 for the adoption of the special meeting of council held last Monday, I think it was. Councillors, recommendation is there. Can I have someone move it? Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Anybody wish to speak against it? Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 7 is delegates' report, of which there is none. Item 8.1. Now, councillors, I'm going to direct you a little bit tonight because there's papers galore that are going to be inserted into your agenda. So it's this document here. And 8.1 is the section 223 submissions on the 2021 budget and council plan. Now, I do know that Councillor Bennett has an alternate motion that she would like to put. You all have a copy of it, I believe.
So my motion... I'll read that out.
Madam Mayor, I think I might have a conflict for this as well because the submission that's made by Wodonga Senior Secondary College to the budget.
Thank you. We'll just... Yep. Happy to adjourn, or would you just rather step out? Just step out. Yep. Yep. Thank you. Councillor Bennett, back to you to put your motion.
So 1 and 2 is the same as what we've got already, but 3 is separate to the section 223 process. Officers investigate the provision of a public toilet facility within the Hunchback Hills complex, preferably near the proposed car park on DELP land, but also exploring options on council land with a view to this being considered in a future budget or as a budget variation. So this additional point is about access and equity in the Hunchback Hills complex by providing some basic amenities for the walkers and the riders up there using those beautiful hills. We've heard from residents who have been utilising our hills that a barrier to them doing that is the lack of amenities. So this point will commit council to investigating the what, the how and even the if this is even an option for up there. The findings may come back that the best option for amenities might be on Crown land. So if that was the case, it would be council's role to advocate to DELP on behalf of our community. And this is our responsibility because we have so clearly and loudly heard from our community through this process and through many years of this process that it is a priority for amenities to be up there. It's a very well established fact that a lack of amenities such as toilets is a barrier for female participation in all the different recreation and organised sport that happens up there. So council have made headway in this space of ensuring that females have equitable access to sport and rec opportunities. So it would be really good for us to continue on this. So if there was really any other sport played in Wodonga that didn't have a toilet, we would certainly hear about it. I also wanted to commend all the people who got in contact with us through this process. You'll see in the, so many pieces of paper, the Wodonga Council draft budget, how all the consultation that we did, and the vast majority of this, of the feedback was centred around this particular item. So I think it's really important that we hear our community, and even if it's not on land of ours, certainly we need to advocate and be the voice for them.
I'll reserve my right.
Look, I'd just like to ask via you, Madam Chair, to Officer Schultz, does he, with his expert opinion, have an idea of approximately how much a toilet, as described in the section 223, would cost? And the second question I'd like to ask is, in regard to the Wodonga Senior Secondary College, is the amount here 20? Is that the amount that they're looking for in regard to moving the crossing, or would that be more?
Try again. Madam Mayor, through you, the approximate cost of a single composting toilet, which is most likely going to be the most appropriate facility to provide on the hills, I would estimate that a single facility in the order of about $15,000. If it were a male and female and it were disabled friendly, that number could quite easily double, I would anticipate. On the second question, the $20,000, was that $20,000 for the crossing? That's probably a fair cost representation, depending on the costs to relocate any flashing lights which may be required in that vicinity.
Just in review to submit a one, I'm sort of with the view that I would possibly be supportive of this. It's, you know, it could be seen as a safety issue. It's not a large sum of money, and we do give grants and funding for all sorts of issues, and I would possibly be supporting a $20,000 amount to move the crossing. With the submitted two, I have no issues with toilets and what have you. I wanted to get an idea on how much it would cost. I would like to know actually where it was going to go before I made all of these decisions, what it probably looked like. It's been a bit of a last minute put into the budget, but I'm not necessarily against it.
Others? Not yet. Councillor Watson.
Madam Mayor, I was very impressed when last week when we had the applications, all them presenting to us, And just following up on Councillor Bennett, is that equity within our community with sport, but with female participation, I think that was a strong message that I got through, is that we need to have a facility there so women partake in this sport.
Thank you. First of all, Councillor Hall, I just want to pick up a point that you made and about this being in the budget. It's actually not in the budget, and I think the whole purpose of Councillor Bennett's motion, item 3, is to do that exploration, to actually understand exactly what that costs, what it looks like, where it would go. So actually all those things that you just said are questions. My understanding is that's exactly the point for question 3.
I'd just like to reply to that. It just states here, where it's a little bit confusing because I've only just seen this tonight, the motion put forward by Councillor Bennett, but it does say here in the submissions. So basically in Councillor Bennett's motion, it's separate to the section 223 process. So I view that that's agreeing to what was put into the section 223 and recommendations by the officer, but also to add further investigation. So in the recommendations in the 223 submissions report given to us, the recommendation, officer recommendation, is to let me see, appropriate funded from existing budget. So basically it would be funded, so whatever the case.
So I'm not going from the report, I'm going from the motion, because that's actually what council is requesting staff to do. So Councillor, a 223 process is to receive the feedback from community, which is what we're doing. This third point, and Councillor Bennett, I'm looking to you, and then I'm going to look to our governance officer to make sure I've understood this, is that we are seeking further information, a further report with the information of a what, where, how, and maybe, and that's actually what point 3 is asking. CEO, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, just to confirm, and I think it's made clear in the motion. So if I just reread the first item in the motion, which states that there are no adjustments or no adjustments be made to the budget and the council plan as a result of the 223 process. So the process doesn't involve any change to the budget for 2021. Separate to the process, the motion put forward by Councillor Bennett says that officers are to be tasked to investigate the provision of a public toilet facility, investigate the cost, the location, everything to do with it, and then bring it back to council. So it could be subject to a future budget, or in fact, if we do it quickly enough, a budget variation in year. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to see that information before we make decisions. We'd be making it on the hop, quite rightly, Councillor Hall, if we didn't do that piece of work first to understand the cost, the where, the how, impact, and etc. So the other part of the feedback that I'd really like to focus in on is the fact that we've had to do things just slightly different this year. We have been moving towards online feedback anyway, so that's actually been in our favour, and we've got some fantastic tools that allow people to provide us feedback and be very specific about their own neighbourhood. So it stood us in good stead as we've gone through COVID and not been able to hold public forums. So although we did do one online, but we haven't been able to do face-to-face to sit down and talk with some of our community in the normal way that we would anticipate doing budget feedback. So I think that the stats in there are pretty interesting. You know, our social media reach is up to 50,000. Well, in terms of a budget, you know, in years gone by where we didn't have social media or we didn't utilise it, we'd go out to all of our neighbourhood centres, etc., and we'll be lucky if we get 1 or 2 people come to show and have a chat with us. So I think that our spread and our reach has still been good through this time, and I think that it is tantamount when you see some of the feedback that we have received where people are talking about very specific things for them, their community groups and their neighbourhoods. So I'd actually like to thank everybody who participated online and gave us feedback, because budgets can be pretty dry, but to have people come back to us, I think, is excellent. And through you, CEO, to the team, thank you, because they have worked under some fairly trying conditions. So I look forward to receiving that report. Councillor Lowe, for you to have comment, and then I'll go back to you, Councillor Bennett, for close.
Yeah, probably just pick up on one of the points you're saying. Not always is a submission to the budget about an ask, and there was quite a few of those people that put in submissions just to say thank you. I recall one particular gentleman around the solar lights at Assumption Gardens. He wrote in to specifically thank us that it was appreciated by the community, and especially those that are local to the area, that we were putting solar lights in around Assumption Gardens. And that was works on safety, but also that inclusivity thing. It gives people extended hours to go walk laps and that, and feel safe in an environment. Back to Councillor Bennett's motion, I totally agree with you. Participation numbers within this sport up there, this particular sport has more numbers than a few of our other sporting clubs combined, and to not have a facility and to say that we wouldn't sit there and look at it would be remiss of us. And the fact that we may be able to identify a spot and then go and seek some government funding from the state government, who are all about female-friendly toilets and stuff like that. There's funding avenues available to us once we do all the groundwork and identify the appropriate site for these things. And if it doesn't fall within DELT land, then we have council land available. But it's about making it the most appropriate spot, because, as Councillor Schultz pointed out, there could be people. He didn't actually point it out, but I'll pick up on what he said about having an all abilities toilet, because it shouldn't be just about male, female, but it should be about inclusive to our whole community. That's why we have an inclusive policy around there. I know a lot of people that go up there and push prams and walk around and push wheelchairs up there as well. So I will be voting in favour of your motion tonight, Councillor Bennett, and I thank you.
Okay, councillors, all, and I did go to Councillor Mitchell tonight. Councillors, all those in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Okay, can we please bring Councillor Mildren back in? Okay, councillors, 8.2 is actually in your main agenda, and the recommendation from the officers to place the adjusted council plan on exhibition in accordance with the Local Government Act is on page 12. Do I have someone move that? Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Mitchell, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our council plan has undergone a number of changes over the last 4 years, and it was put out for public opinion, and we've received no Section 223 submissions in regard to this. The 4-year revision will be passed on to the Victorian Local Government Minister, and I recommend it.
Does anybody wish to speak against this? Otherwise, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Item 8.3 is the 2021 budget and declaration of rates and charges. Now, it is a long recommendation, starts on page 14 of this document, councillors, and pretty much goes to the end. Do I have someone move the budget, please? You're just scratching your ear or putting your hand up, Councillor Lowe. Thank you very much. You're multi-skilled. Councillor Lowe, thank you for putting that motion. Do I have someone second it? Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Lowe.
To say this budget was a little bit different would be a little bit of an understatement. A lot of hard work went in prior to the January 19 fires and also COVID. So we had months of work that council staff and councillors had to readjust at a last minute. But that's why we're sitting here. It's to make some decisions around our agility to be mobile in these sorts of environments. So I sit here and we present the budget to the community after a long and testing time for our community. The main thing is we need to keep business going as usual and be prepared to get business up and going. So I'll just highlight things like upstream within the budget. We purposely selected this event because we feel it touches a lot of different businesses, and we're going to get our moteliers, our restaurants, our tourism operators, and draw people to the area to get some money circulating through our economy, just to highlight one. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'd like to say that I'm happy with the budget. There will be a general rate rise, will be zero. This is a good outcome. It recognises the hardships many are going through with the COVID virus. It also allows for an ambitious capital works program. Fees and service charges have been mostly kept to a minimum. With the waste and garbage charges, there will be actually a 1.6% reduction, which is a good outcome. We have to keep in mind that with the Ombudsman report, waste charges cannot be more than what the service costs to the community. So we've been really on board with that. I think the overall budget's good. It's not going in too tight with the COVID issues. I think we need to still have a little bit available if there's issues that come up going forward. But overall, it's I'm happy with this budget.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too am reasonably satisfied with the budget for what it is. As I've said on a number of occasions before, I philosophically think we could have done things in a different manner, which might have produced, in the context of COVID-19, a more productive outcome that supported our community. But on the whole, this budget produces no rate rise, which is an objective that basically I brought into the council when I first was elected to council, and therefore I have to be happy with that because that's been the objective that I've had for the 4 years. So broadly speaking, I think it's a good budget, but I think philosophically we could have done some things differently and perhaps allocated some things differently, but fundamentally I'll support the budget. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. If you'll just indulge me, because I'd like to maybe reflect a little bit, because this is the last budget for this council term. And I remember saying to a few of you who were new at the time around the table that your 4 years will go very, very quickly, and it certainly has. But in reflection, I think that this council should be very proud of its achievements. We've continued to deliver to our community despite fires, an international pandemic, stresses on our business, and certainly other challenges of a growing city. For the last 3 years, we have delivered a 0% rate rise in line with long-term financial planning of reducing debt. Our debt at the end of this financial year will be $18.5 million. At the end of the next budget will be $16.5 million. So long-term financial planning, steady at the tiller, has been achieved. And while I do say that, 0% is not sustainable. We need to be conscious of that, and future councils will need to be conscious of that as they go forward. We have continued to deliver assets needed for our growth, a CBD that is absolutely vibrant and a community that is incredibly proud of it. We've delivered helped support a stronger economy. We've seen new businesses, large and small, come to town, providing new jobs and strength to our economy. And we've also helped deliver a far more livable city. We've seen reinvestment in our current sporting facilities while still providing funds for new growth areas and Barranduda Fields. We've also seen continued investment in bike paths, in walking tracks, and haven't they come into their own in the last few months? So I'd like to say thank you to all of you councillors for all of the hard work over the 4 years, but this is the last budget that we'll be delivering for this council term, but also thank you to the staff. And I think testament to your hard work is the fantastic community results that we receive a little later on in our reports tonight. And, you know, this community is a better place for having the people sitting at this table served, but also having our staff at the helm delivering for our community. So I think we should be really proud, and we should take that small moment of reflection because it is hard work. You give up time from your family and your friends and your personal lives. So thank you. And to Councillor Lowe for any close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't go back over anything that you've done, but it's been a pleasure working with this team for the budgets too. To say it was an eye opener would be an understatement. But what Wodonga has achieved as a whole and as a team over the term that I've been here, watching the city centre evolve, and whilst we sit here and say that we've got an $18.5 million debt sitting on the books, that's there to balance the books. You know, we've got a brilliant asset out in Logic that we owe next to nothing for, where it's only going to take a couple of sales of land now, and that is debt-free out there. Of course, we'll need to reinvest into there to materialise the rest of the asset that's sitting out there. But that's what council staff and councillors are entrusted to do, is to find out where their priorities lay and what projects they pick to focus on. And, you know, Councillor Mildren, you mentioned that you stood for 0% rate rises or something like that. And during the last council election campaign, I actually don't think I heard anyone campaign on the fact that they're going to put rate rises up. So it's a buoyant point, I think. It's just one of those things that I think every councillor and those sitting at home listening that are thinking about doing the job, I think one of the responsibilities is, yes, we keep downward pressure on rates, but we make sure that we live in a city that we want to live in, and what people, what their future vision entails for it to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, I put the motion to us to adopt the 2021 budget. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Item 8.4 is council meeting dates, and this has come up because we do have some changes through the new Act, and also because of some shift arounds from the new Act and from COVID in terms of election dates. So the recommendation is there on page 18 of 144. Do I thank you, Councillor Watson? Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Watson.
Oh, Madam Mayor, there is a few changes due to the new Act coming into being, and I'd just like to point out a couple of points on that, is that in addition to the report, that the Council will be offering mandatory candidate training for persons interested in running for Council. So, you know, to be making sure that you're very aware and knowing what you'll be going into if you want to nominate. And also just being very clear of the caretaking dates for the election and things like that. So the MAV will be running a couple of dates for general awareness for potential councillors, and I urge all residents who think there's someone out there in the community to put their hand up.
Nobody wishes to speak against it? Put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. And those dates will be available, or they are available on our website, should anybody have any interest. Item 8.5 is review of the instruments of delegation. Again, this is in line with the new Act. Councillors, the recommendation is there on page 24. Do I have someone move that? Thanks, Councillor Bennett. Thanks, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Bennett?
Yep, just really quickly. As our Mayor said, this is in relation to the commencement of the new Act. All of this information and some other ones coming up, some other policies have all been checked by a legal firm that specialises in all things local government. And obviously with delegations, so many of the decisions that council makes are not made at a council meeting, or else we'd be living here 24/7. So this is just everything in place to make sure it's really transparent around who is making the decisions and how that's reported back.
Anybody wish to? Yep, Councillor Mildred.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've consistently not supported most of the delegation things that have gone through the council for all sorts of reasons that I've spoken about many times. But there is one thing that I'd like to highlight out of this. There's many things that I don't agree with, but there's one thing that I'd like to highlight, and that is this set of delegations, in association with some of the policy stuff that comes with it, actually provides the CEO with the power to appoint a deputy CEO or an acting CEO for a maximum period of up to 28 days, which in my opinion is a very significant break from history and from tradition and from convention that's happened in local government. That may be a good thing. Some people will argue, let's break all these conventions and do everything else. Well, yep, we can see the impacts of many of those things. Some of them are good, some of them are not. I don't think this is a good one. I think this is an interesting twist in the way local government is emerging under the new Act. So I can't support this delegation again for all the reasons previously and for that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'm actually just going to ask a question if I can. Can I seek a bit of clarity? Is that in the response to the, and sorry, this is question without notice, Officer Scully, is that around the COVID thing where we had to then try and put a special motion in place to enable that if the CEO got sick, then it went to the next person and then it went to the next person? And is that something that has been a response?
The 2020 Act provides for that, so it's specifically in the Act. It's not COVID related.
Yep. Point of clarification: when we say provides for, that doesn't mean insist that it be done that way. It is an enabling provision rather than a that's the way you have to do it. That's the way I understand it anyway. If that could be clarified.
Look, as Kevin gets up, I might just clarify that. I think you might be right in terms of, but the intent of the new Act is to generally be less prescriptive and follow commercial best practice. So, you know, we've run that particular piece through Maddox, and we've also sort of benchmarked it against the other councils, and we're certainly consistent with most of the councils and the Maddox advice that we've received.
So council can choose to retain any delegation. That's an option they have. I would like just to check that one a little bit more, because if it's under the 7A option, then yes, you do have the option not to delegate for the CEO to have that power.
So thank you, Councillor Bennett. I think you moved the motion. I'm actually happy to accept this tonight, get some further information. I don't see an issue with it at this point. We do have a CEO and a team that do come back to us for any sort of confirmation and et cetera without decisions being made. But given what we just went through, that really clunky process to try and delegate in case someone got sick and we had to try and do it in a hurry and make sure the words are right and everything else, I'm actually pretty happy that it gives us a bit more coverage. I don't see anything sinister in it. I think it's actually about trying to enable the business of council. Councillor Bennett, did you have anything to close? Councillors, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Item 8.6 is property leasing, licensing and licensing policy. We're going to see quite a few of these new policies come through off the back of the new Act. So expect not only this meeting, but the several meetings to come. So the attachments are there, and then the recommendation to adopt this policy is on page 27. Do I have someone move it? Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Bennett.
So currently council doesn't have a policy around this. We'd be referring people to the Act on this one, but when community do want to know the approach that council is using to identify and assess and decide around licences and leases, just directing them to the Act could be a bit difficult. So it's great that we've finally got something really nice and clear for our community to see what approach we use, and we manage about 98 leases and licences.
Just to reconfirm what Councillor Bennett said, but it's to be that transparent and consistent across all our 98 leases or thereabouts leases. And so when some of them come for renewal, we can bring them all into line very similar. So I think it's one of those things which a lot of these tonight's agenda items will be, is just changing over to the new government policies.
Does anybody wish to speak against it? Otherwise, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 8.7, sale, exchange and transfer of council-owned land policy. Again, we're seeing this in line with some changes coming through the new Act, particularly around the 223 process. Councillors, the recommendation is on page 31. Have someone move it? Thanks, Councillor Watson. Thanks, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Watson, did you wish to speak to it?
No, man, it's very self-explanatory and going through what the new legislation is saying.
Councillor Mitchell, did you wish to speak to it?
Just very quickly, Madam Mayor, it builds additional transparency and benefits the residents and ratepayers of Wodonga. So, fait accompli.
Good luck to him reading all the policies. Good bedtime reading. Does anybody wish to speak against this tonight? Otherwise, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 8.8 is property divestment policy. The recommendation on page 34, do I have someone move it? Thanks, Councillor Bennett. Thanks, Councillor Lowe. Any comments, Councillor Bennett? No? Councillor Lowe? Does anybody wish to speak against it? No? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 8.9 is the Microsoft Annual Licence Agreement. Big numbers, but it looks like that's, I guess, general business practice. So the motion is there on page 38. Do I have someone move it? Our computer specialist. Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. And Councillor Lowe as a seconder. Any comments?
Very quick comment, and that is that council can't survive without good old Microsoft. We need them with all of what they supply, and I recommend that we accept the agreement.
Since Councillor Mitchell is our IT expert as councillors, that's one good reason why councillors have very diverse skills and we draw upon each other. And this is one where I'm definitely drawing upon Councillor Mitchell's recommendation here. Thank you.
Councillors, anyone wish to speak against it? Otherwise, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Item 8.10, provision of mobile security patrol services. I had quite a few tender for this. The recommendation is there on page 45. Do I have someone put that motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Watson. Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Watson? Oh, sorry.
Madam Mayor, I think it's once again quite self-explanatory within the report, and thanks to the officers putting the report up. But this also, security services, correct me if I'm wrong, also is some of our outdoor events that we run, is that there's security for that as well. So, and such things as I would probably call children's fair and the things we've had at the Cube, outdoors and indoors as well there.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Wouldn't it be a wonderful world if we didn't need security services? Unfortunately, we do, and I'm pleased to see that the quotation process has been competitive. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Acknowledging my OCD and pedantic approach to things, might I suggest that we drop the word should from the last sentence? The contract be executed rather than should be executed. Should's an uncertain word.
Councillors, so the word should will be removed. Thank you. You want to see it back in? Okay, Councillor Lowe.
And I apologise for this, and I don't even know who to direct it to, but the ranges was from 390,000 to almost $1 million for this tender range. We've settled, and I'll be voting in favour of the being in the middle somewhere, but could, through you, Madam Chair and CEO, just give a brief explanation why we've the recommendations is the middle ground there.
So I might just ask Narelle to make comment, but other than to say that when we do our tenders, we obviously look at the evaluation criteria, and the evaluation criteria will weight various things. Some of that might be actually about a local business getting the contract rather than somebody from further afield, but a range of factors, especially quality and previous work, would all count. So that process is an evaluation of a number of criteria that would lead us not to be determined, or not to determine an outcome by price and price alone. Narelle, did you want to add any more?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify, in the report we've set out we use an evaluation criteria which assesses not only the price but also the quality of the submission against a number of different evaluation criteria. Price is then brought into that calculation to work out the value for money indicator, and the selected tenderer for this came out with the best value for money. So that's a balance of quality and price. So just because someone's submitted a cheap price doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the quality that our community expects when it comes to providing those services.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. I think we've all seen examples regionally where sometimes the cheapest price is not the best outcome for community. Thank you.
I'm just looking forward to having events where we get to use security again. Councillors, motion is on the table. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Item 8.11, insurance tender and renewal. Now, councillors, you were given an extra piece of paper where the amount under item 3 is slightly different. In fact, on the piece of paper, it is about $1,000, just $900 cheaper. 272 versus 273. Yeah, I'll get you to talk to this because then I'm reading something incredibly different.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With this insurance tender report, there has been a variation. This is due to COVID-19 delays experienced in receiving the Municipal Association of Victoria's invoice for the Local Government Liability Mutual Scheme renewal for the 2020 to 2021 year. An estimate was included in the report that was included in the council agenda. The actual invoice was only just received on Saturday, June 27th. The amount of that invoice was for $272,897, which is $7,058 more than the amount included in the report. We confirm that despite this small increase in premium, the total cost of the MAV LMI insurance is substantially less than the alternative policy submitted during the tender process and therefore remains the best value for money for council. In addition, council has not yet received the Municipal Association of Victoria's commercial crime insurance renewal invoice. Therefore, the indicative price provided by MAV of $8,148 may actually be slightly higher when received. The price of the MAV commercial crime insurance policy, again, is substantially lower than the alternative policy submitted through the tender process. Therefore, renewing the commercial crime insurance policy remains the best value for money for council. I recommend, due to the cost of this policy being well below the CEO's delegation, that once the renewal notice is eventually received by council, that it be renewed under delegation. So that amount of $8,000 has been removed from the report. Therefore, I propose an adjustment to the recommendation in the report that point 3 be amended to say that the payment of $272,897 for the renewal of council's public liability insurance policy for 2020 to 2021 through the MAV LMI scheme be approved, and to add a fourth point saying that the renewal of council's commercial crime policy be renewed under delegation.
Thank you. Now, how you got to your $9,000. So it's actually $900 different to what we had written in the other one, but you've got the other $8,000 that actually isn't mentioned in here, but it will be done under delegation. Now I understand. Councillors, is that clearer for you guys as well? Thank you very much. Do I have someone move then this new motion? Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Mitchell, did you have any comments?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. This recommendation is a sound and acceptable decision, and a bit like security services, it's something that we have to have. But it does concern me quite a bit that the amounts of money that we're paying out this year is something close to 30% higher than what it was last year. And I think council needs to be very much aware of potential risk over the next 3 or 4 years, because it's an exponential rise that we need to be aware of. Thank you.
I've actually got a quick question, and sorry, this is a question without notice, Narelle. My memory, and it could be patchy, but over the last couple of years, we've actually seen our insurances decrease. This is the year that we've suddenly seen an increase again. I'm guessing fires and all the unknowns that are coming.
Yes, Madam Mayor. The council did a tender process 3 years ago for our insurances, and through that tender process we received some benefits in a reduction in the premiums that we'd paid. So that was a good financial outcome for council. We've done a tender process again this year after that 3-year period, but there's been, and I have mentioned in the report, there's been substantial issues across or globally in relation to natural disaster events. There's been a number of fairly substantial cyclones. We've had the black summer with the bushfires here in Australia, and now with COVID-19, there's issues around the insurance market that it's very unstable, and there's been, I think the actual sector's flagged some policies could be expected to increase by up to 100%. There's instances of insurers actually refusing to insure some products that people have been using. So I think we're quite lucky with doing this tender process now. We've probably got a couple of % lower than what the increase would have been if we hadn't gone to tender. So that's been a good outcome for us. And I think the sector as a whole, for the September quarter and the December quarter, they're expecting some substantial uplifts in policies. So I think Councillor Mitchell is right that we need to keep an eye on this, because potentially our insurance premiums for the next couple of years could be increasing exponentially.
Thank you very much. Back to Councillor Mitchell. Did you have anything for close? No. Councillors, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Item 8.12 is the Procurement Policy Review. Excuse me. The recommendation is there on page 55 to adopt the attached policy. as in is in our attachments, councillors. Can I have some? Do I have someone move that? Thank you, councillor. No. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That following the annual review of the procurement policy, the attached policy be adopted as distinct from the words that were written. That the attached policy be adopted.
Councillors, did anybody wish to speak against this policy? If not, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Item 8.13, I have Councillor Bennett has a conflict. Now, Councillor Mildren, you had one too. Councillor Bennett, you go first.
Yep, I've got an indirect conflict with conflicting duty. I work with junior footy clubs around healthy canteens.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have an indirect conflict because I'm a member of the Mungaburita Aboriginal Corporation Board and the Corporation Board's a beneficiary.
Thank you, councillors. There was a possible motion circulated. You should all have a loose leaf paper. Councillor Mitchell, you're happy to move that? Thank you. Councillor Watson? Sorry, you got.
Madam Mayor, just one clarification. I was under the understanding we were going to put them up 3 different independent motions, but we've changed. But I'm happy to go with the as the motion is set out.
Does anybody have any? If we move them all at once? No? You're happy? Then you're happy to second? Thank you. Councillor Mitchell, did you have comments?
We will take the motion as tabled. Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. In reviewing these grants over the last weeks, I see many deserving applications that have been put before the council. I'm very pleased to say that a great majority have received our approval, and I'm very happy that the motion reflects this. Thank you.
Oh, Madam, just a very quick couple of comments. One is that thank you to all the panel members who sat in and went through all these large amounts of submissions. But secondly, apologise to community through the COVID-19 that they're probably a bit later than usual. I do apologise to our community that they are later, and that's due to COVID-19 and to getting the panel members together. I understand that was what the reasoning was. But yes, once again, following up Councillor Mitchell, is that some very worthy and hard-working clubs and different organisations that applied, and I congratulate them that have, and commiserations with the ones who missed out, but, you know, always can reapply.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yep, Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just to echo my fellow councillors' thoughts, and just to give some people at home that aren't privy to the paperwork in front of us just yet, just to highlight a couple that are on there, just to give an idea of the ones that we support and we can encourage to keep trying as well, is people like the Upper Murray Family Care, who are running a program to look after the carers of people with dementia. And it's just to give them an outlet to where they can go express themselves and just take their mind off the job, basically, for a little bit to from their day-to-day duties of care. Another one is our Wodonga Urban Land Care Networks and our Clyde Cameron Reserve people, where we're supporting small projects within those reserves, and that. But the reason why I personally like to support those ones as well is because you can take $1 there and turn it into about 10. The volunteer hours that these people put in down there is just remarkable, and the way they present and their commitment to this is just unbelievable. And I thank them firstly and foremostly. But it's brilliant. So it's a way of stretching council dollars further and reaching a far better impact on community. Thank you.
Well said, and it is all about partnerships, and you're absolutely right that makes that $1 go a very long way, and we certainly are a better community for having all those groups out there. Councillor Mitchell, did you want anything to close? Councillors, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Would you please bring back in? I'm not sure if Councillor Mildren's got a conflict still on 8:14. I'm pretty sure he has. 8:14, yep. And come on back and then we can kick you out again. Item 8.14 is the planning scheme amendments C133 and C135. It's an update. We have seen this before, councillors, but Councillor Mildren, you have a comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, as every time previously, my business has been engaged by a developer who has land affected by the proposed amendments.
Councillors, before I ask someone if they would like to move that recommendation on page 67, I'm just going to get the CEO to give us a bit of a summary, given that we've actually received these before, just to give a bit of clarity, particularly for those people at home.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Yeah, the Mayor's absolutely right. You've seen this before, and both C133 and C135 are both planning scheme amendments related to Riverside Estate. The two differ in terms of C133 is a council-initiated fix-up of policy-neutral anomalies on the Riverside Estate, and C135 is a developer-led fix-up of things that, whilst we agree, is a developer-led one. The changes are minor in nature, technical in nature, and have been agreed by council and the developer, and we just wanted to obviously share them with council to make sure you've got the most accurate and updated information. But Leon Schultz might wish to just add a little bit more.
Thanks, Leon.
Madam Mayor, just to follow on with what the CEO has enunciated, the two amendments, 133, when we provided the information post the council meeting to the department, the department requested some minor editorial changes to better align the explanatory report, the text in the explanatory report, to the maps. We did seek legal advice as to whether it was necessary to come back to the council with those very minor changes, and the advice was that yes, it's best to bring it back. That is 133. On Amendment 135, we continue to negotiate with the developers post the March council meeting, and we agreed to add another small lot within the amendment, and a slight boundary change, which makes sure that 3 lots are in a single zone, not split across 2 zones, and that's 135. So 135 itself will now progress through the department onto seeking ministerial approval, and the recommendation makes it possible that should any minor editorial changes come back for 135, that they are now delegated to I believe it is myself to make those minor changes. They will have no material impact on the amendments.
And what we hope is that helps speed process. Thank you. Yeah, good. Councillors, their recommendation is there on page 67. Can I have someone move it? Thanks, Councillor Bennett. Thanks, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Bennett. Yep, been covered. Any other questions or anybody wish to speak against it? Otherwise, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. If you could bring Councillor Mildren back in, that would be great. Okay, item 15 is divestment of vacant industrial land, Lot 2, PS 53339. This is all about kicking off a open process to sell council land, community land. The recommendation is there on page 72. Do I have someone put this motion? Knock me over. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Bennett.
Look, no, just that this is starting our commencement of an expression of interest process for some land out on Kiwa Valley Highway near the old sale yards.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Having an expression of interest process, it gives us still control. So I think that's a very important thing with community and community-owned land. So once again, I think it's a good process to start off with.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we're jumping the gun just a little bit with this. The land was originally designated by Wodonga Council as a possible future outdoor depot location. And I understand that our Cane Road lease might be negotiated with an option to buy, but nothing at this stage is certain. We're bringing this out in a what could be deemed a depressed market, and I think that we could sit on the land for a year or two and it would not make any major change to budget or finances. So it's my recommendation that we do nothing. Comment only.
Well, I guess in clarification, we have settled on a lease arrangement, as Councillor Mitchell said, for the ongoing lease of the depot. And that arrangement also includes the first right of refusal in terms of an option to buy the depot in its existing site. We've gone down that path because the development of a completely new depot would cost considerably more than perhaps a purchase of the existing site. All that said, this is an expression of interest. It's just a fair and open and transparent way of going to the market. And we think, despite COVID and despite the bushfires, there is a very positive business opportunities in the city, and we're seeing a lot of interest. We'll obviously test the market and bring that back to council.
Thanks. You missed one point that I was hoping you'd pick up, CEO, and that's the land that you're referring to that we were going to consider for the depot actually wasn't this site. It was actually over the other part closer to on the old sale yard site, not this site. And I've got a nod. Yeah. Just to give you a clarity, so it wasn't actually this site. This is the one, just so you know where it is, Council, is actually next to Rockler. Councillor Mildren.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Fundamentally, I think putting out to an expression of interest is a good move, and it's probably the process we should follow more frequently. Won't go into other debates that could be had about other pieces of land. Maybe that'll be in the next item. What I would say, though, is if we are going to carry or going to have the second component of this set in place, then I think we probably need to, if we're going to do that now, then I think we need to also identify what the process will be to select who we're going to market that with, because to market it as council probably steps over a whole heap of lines, not least of which I don't think we have a licensed real estate agent on our staff. Sorry.
So I'll look to maybe the Deputy CEO to back me up here, but we checked with Maddox, and we are quite entitled as council to put the expression of interest out as council without going through a real estate agent. Okay. What was the second part?
Is actually that it's going to go, if it's not successful, that it goes to market. I think is Councillor Mildred's point. Yep.
Oh, sorry, I'm with you. Yep.
Deb?
Yep.
Deb, you want to step up and speak?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we would be engaging a real estate agent to undertake that process.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess that was my expectation, but we haven't got a methodology or a process as to how we're going to choose that agent. And I think if we're going to put that second part of the recommendation in, we should be saying how we're going to do that as well.
Look, I guess you can, we can add that in, but we have a procurement policy that clearly directs how we would engage any contractor, and in this case, that would include a real estate agent. So we would apply council's procurement policy through a tender process.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, depending on the amounts that are involved, a tender process might be a little bit of overkill, but we would potentially do a request for quote and you know, test the market through a number of real estate agents to see what came in as the most favourable outcome for council.
Madam Mayor, in my view, we should say that in the resolution.
Can we say subject to seeking quotes from appropriate real estate agents?
Sorry, Madam Mayor and Councillor Mildren, if you wanted to change the wording, may I just suggest that in paragraph 2 of the recommendation, we could just simply add, should the expression of interest process not successfully secure a sale, the lot would be listed for sale on the open market in accordance with council's procurement policy.
Could we just have be listed for sale by a licensed agent?
Madam Mayor, I suggest that we should make reference to getting the 3 quotes, as was.
So the motion's sitting on the table. The motion has it at the moment with no suggestion of an alternate. So motion is there, and I'm going to call for a vote on it. So councillors, the only suggestion that I've heard is is the addition of through a licensed agent, and I'm going to go back to the mover and the seconder. So that's Councillor Bennett and Councillor Watson. Thank goodness I wrote those down because I would have forgotten by now. Councillor Bennett, are you happy to add the words through a licensed agent?
Yep, I'm happy to add that. And in terms of the other comments around, you know, getting 3 quotes, we don't include that extra information in a variety of other things that is the same. So I don't see why we have to specify it in this particular one.
Councillor Watson, given you were the seconder, are you happy to add with the licensed agent?
I'm happy to change that amendment to adding the licensed agent, and I think our processes will follow everything else up from then on in.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, you're just trying to point something out, Narelle? Passed. Yeah, thank you. So it is covered by the procurement policy that we've just passed, does cover 3 quotes. So we're adding the additional words, so it listed for sale in the open market through a licensed agent. Yes, comfortable? Yes, they are the words. Okay, councillors, I am going to put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Against? Thank you. Sure. The motion that sits on the table is an expression of interest process for the sale of Lot 2, PS 53379 be commenced immediately, and 2, should the expression of interest process not successfully secure a sale, Lot PS 53379 be listed for sale on the open market through a licensed agent. All those in favour? Thank you, Councillor Hall, Councillor Mildren, Councillor Watson, Councillor Lowe, Councillor Bennett, Councillor Speedy. Against? Councillor Mitchell. Thank you. Item 8.16 is the proposed sale of land at Logic. There is a recommendation on page 78. Do I have someone move this? Thanks, Councillor Watson. Thanks, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Watson.
Madam Mayor, as the recommendation is before us, I'm happy with that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To the best of my knowledge, this land's never actually been advertised for sale. Council's was approached by representatives, one of which included a former councillor, for the lease of the site. A lease was voluntarily entered. A planning permit has been granted by Indigo Shire for a solar farm. The existence of both the lease and the current planning permit adds value to the land. What the total value to the market is has not been tested. Even the valuers were originally at considerable variance with their estimated valuation. The Section 223 process is not a market valuation test, and we have one submission which, in my observation, raises some significant questions that are valid about the real value to council versus the sale price. Making a decision to sell based on an assertion by the leasee that they will break the lease because it's not viable and is grossly inappropriate. The lease was voluntarily entered into relatively recently, and nothing substantial has changed to my knowledge that can justify such an assertion. Why should council not take legal remedy to enforce its lease, if it comes to that? More to the point, if the project is economically, and by the project I mean the solar farm project, is economically at risk, as we've been told, if council wants to sell the land, then it is even more important to offer it up to the market with the lease and the planning permit in place. We are potentially ripping off our ratepayers with what we're doing with this. And to my thinking, I think we really should have went to the market. It might have ended up in exactly the same outcome, but it might not have. And at least we would have been able to value or get a proper valuation of what this land's worth. I cannot support this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Well, I guess all I would say is that, you know, today's not about necessarily whether this goes to market. We've already discussed that at a previous council meeting, and we've had approval to go through a 223 process. This is the outcome of the 223 process, to which there was only one submission from across the whole community. That one submission did raise some valid points around the viability of the lease, and council has had many discussions with various experts around the viability of that lease and the risks to council should that lease collapse, and our ability to enforce payments of the lease for the term. Because of that, and because of assessing those risks, we did seek legal advice in how we proceed to a sale of this site. And as I think everybody is aware, there was some fairly strong negotiations on council's part to ensure that the sale is above the valuation for that land. Thank you.
Okay, the report provided tonight at tonight's meeting does go briefly into the background and history of the process around the offer and sale of this council-owned land at Logic. The land sale was dealt with at council under confidential business back on the 20th of December 2019. As noted in this report, it did not support I did not support the recommendations. What this report in the council agenda does not say is that a report on this sale came up to council on the 9th of December 2019 as well. It was also dealt with under confidential business. That report also dealt with the sale of the Logic land and around the process of council process for selling it. I cannot mention anything in particular about that report tonight because it is still classified as confidential business. So for me to be able to give you my full reasons as to why I do not support the support the recommendations last time. This came up to council. I cannot because I believe it'd be breaching the Local Government Act. All I will say is that the one submitter to the Section 223 public exhibition of this proposed sale has many valid points in his submission, and I won't be supporting this motion tonight.
Can you just remind me, when we did the 223 process for the sale of what we refer to as CBD West, when the 223 process went out, that actually drew an additional bidder out of the woodwork and actually allowed for them to put a counter offer onto the table. So in effect, what we've done is a 223 process, and yet it actually didn't draw anybody else out of the marketplace like we saw, for example, on the CBD West site. So there was actually opportunity for somebody else, if they'd been sitting out in the marketplace, to put a counter offer or put an offer. That, I'm just checking, that did occur, didn't it? We did actually have a different submitter come in during that process.
So that's correct, Madam Mayor. Whilst the 223 process isn't necessarily designed for that, it certainly doesn't prevent it. So the 223 process is that opportunity for our community to put in a submission for or against the decision. But it wouldn't stop anybody throughout that period that the 223 was on exhibition putting in a counter bid should they wish to do so. And you're absolutely right, that did happen for the sale of CBD West. Had that had happened, we would have had to bring it to the table for council to consider. Thank you.
Point of clarification, Madam Mayor, but the 223 process for CBD West was after significant market testing had been done by a number of different means with that parcel of land over a good number of years. That has not happened in this particular case. This land, to my knowledge, has never ever been actually offered for sale to test the market. And the 223 process under the Local Government Act is not intended or designed to test the market. Absolutely fair game for people to put an alternate submission, but it's not calling for that. So in that case, we are not testing the market. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'm just going to continue if I could. It's kind of like, for me, when you, I'm going to oversimplify this, but when you sell your house, you do put a price on it, and you hope that you put the right price on it, that you're maximising the value of something, but you're never really sure till you actually sell it. You know, I think maybe in hindsight, we will all be smarter and we'll all be able to look at something and say should have, would have, could have. The reality for me is we have an offer on the table. We have a strong offer on the table that I believe we have done the due diligence on with the valuation that's been sought. And we have an offer of $3.5 million for our community, and also to see the ensuring of the project continue. So, well, yes, there's probably still some questions, and could we have done this better? Perhaps, and the perhaps we won't know till hindsight. So I am going to support the motion tonight, although there probably is still a few questions for me. Councillor Lowe, you look like you're wiggling in your seat. Did you have something you'd like to say?
Probably a question for Officer Schultz. I just need some clarification. Was the original lease agreement done in confidential? Yeah, I didn't think so. Good. One of the enticing factors why we all got excited about the original lease agreement was because it was so bloody good to council. And if I remember correctly, there probably wasn't a councillor in the room that just went, this is just too good to be true. And look, we're never ever going to know the answer to that now. But we all put our hands up and voted in favour of the lease because it was such a bloody good offer and a really good offer to council. The company has realised that maybe it's not a viable lease option and have now offered to buy the land. We've gone out for the submission process and has come back. I don't necessarily disagree with Councillor Mildren in the fact of testing the market, but I'm supportive of what you said, Madam Mayor, about I'm a big believer in you take what we've got now and we can reinvest that and make that and turn that into a greater outcome for the community. You never know what you don't know, and unfortunately we won't know now. We won't know what the market may have told us, but what we do know is that we have a sale of land for $3.5 million that had potentially a lease to fall over and we got nothing, and that piece of land would have sat there for years and years, and I don't feel I would be comfortable with that when we have an opportunity to sell the land at $3.5 million for our community. Thank you.
Just say a word. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been in favour of this sale ever since a reasonable price was negotiated. The 3.5 was the result of a couple of increases from its original offer, and our residents and ratepayers are the winners here. Thank you.
Okay, I'm trying to now remember who actually moved this. Councillor Watson. Thank you. What time is it? Councillor Watson, did you have anything for Clive?
Madam Mayor, just to say that I'm always in the belief that every inch of real estate that we have down the Logic Centre is for sale, and it must be known to community and to business that every inch of our real estate down there is for sale at any time. So, in closing, I think this is a great thing for our city.
Councillors, motion is before us. All those in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Certainly. The recommendation, I'm not going to read it all out, is on page 78. All those in favour? Councillor Mitchell, did you have your hand up before? You're now voting against. I'm confused. Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Watson, Councillor Lowe, Councillor Bennett, Councillor Speedy. It's 4 against. Councillor Hall, Councillor Mildren. Item 9.1 is the results of the statewide community satisfaction survey. Recommendation to receive and note that report. Always happy to do that when it's good news. 8.1. Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Watson, you want a second? Thank you. Councillor Mitchell, did you want to say anything?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report just confirms that we are now listening, we're understanding, and we're acting in the right ways. We shouldn't become complacent. We should be looking at this and saying that there are probably other ways that we can improve, but it's a great indicator. It makes me very proud that I've played a small part in this amazing result. Thank you.
I'd just like to commend all our staff that have helped achieve this, in the sense that their service and their loyal work to our community is paid dividends on this report.
Councillors, if anybody wishes to speak against this report, otherwise I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.1 is the finance report for May. Figures are all there. Explanations are there. Is there any questions? No, I'm going to move us through. 10.2 is the planning report for May. Again, for information only. Is there any questions? No. Item 10.3 is the building report for March. Information only. 10.4 is the competitive services report. Always great to see new loos being built, and we're seeing the Kelly Park Pavilion being built. Lots of things still being constructed out there. 10.5 is assemblies of councillors. Councillors, I do hope that you do check those to check if you've been an apology and or in attendance. 10.6, decisions register. This always checks if you've read all these papers, councillors. I'm sure Kevin put some of those in there just to make sure we are. 11 is notices of motion. There are none. 12 is petitions. There are none. 13, council seals. There are none. 14, general business. There are none, although I know Councillor Watson will bring something next time. Urgent business 15, there is none. 16, question time, no questions. And that leaves me to close the public meeting. There is the description of, so under the new items where we need to list everything, that is there on page 124. Do I have someone move to close the meeting to consider some confidential business? Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Anybody wish to vote against that? If not, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. We will come back to you at the end of this. Thank you. Thank you and welcome back, councillors. For our couple of in-camera items, we actually have a new recommendation, so it actually holds us instead with the new Act. You have a copy of that. There's actually 3 points to that. We can't just simply adopt the motions through the closed meeting. So that recommendation is there. There is 3 points there that resolves the adoption of those and enables the staff to enact those items under the confidential banner. So, councillors, the recommendation there is those 3 points. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Very keen to get out of here. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Did anybody wish to speak against that? Thank you, councillors. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors, and I will see you all on Monday, the 20th of July. Well, in fact, I'll see you before then, but we will see our community then. And let's hope we might be able to welcome them back in maybe then, maybe August meeting. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, executive.